Well, if you're watching or listening to this right now, I am honored to have some time with Daniela Donhart, and she has founded an organization that helps teens. She's also what I call a serial entrepreneur because she has several businesses, and her businesses are driven by passion. And this is what we do here at Mompreneur Source. So, Daniela, tell us your story and what keeps you going.
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me, first of all, Glow. And I can tell you that in terms of my work with teenagers, what keeps me going is the thought of having one less teenager go into an anger rage and do something that they will regret in the future, or even end their lives at that point. I
Mm,
think there is too much of that going around. It's there's a lot of pressure that is on the teenagers and is on the parents often. And the parents don't realize how they are putting more pressure on their teenagers. There's a lot of work, and I mean work in terms of being outside, working, gaining money to keep the family going. And when you're in the home, there's not always very smooth conversation with the teenagers. There's a lot of ideas about how teenagers are, and that's not necessarily how your teenager is. So being able to be there even for 5 minutes, listening, really listening without the thought of, I know what they're going to tell me, but really listening because we don't know. We really don't know what our teenagers are telling us. Even when we ask, sometimes we are not. Many times it happens, we ask and we're not open to listening. We listen whatever it is that we want to listen. We wear like this filter that we listen through. But that's in terms of the parents that I think has play a big role in the upkeeping of the teenagers and in their growth. And for the teenagers themselves, I love helping them realize about the little critics that they have in their head and how they can go about figuring out if who is talking to them is their inner critic or is their inner superhero. And if it is their inner superhero, how can you give that voice more strength so that that's the voice that guides you and not your inner critic that is telling you all the time, oh, look at how that guy looked at you, he's just criticizing you, he's, you know, not go into that thing. And I do involve art in a lot of my coaching, and the reason for that is that I am an artist. By my first training is as a visual artist. I work with glass, with painting, and with performance, which is basically you use your body as the source of the art. And I think there's um, a big strength in art. There's much art that is being missed out on nowadays at the schools. The budget for the arts has been cut, and
mm,
it's there's like a shift thinking that it's not really that important. But actually, art helps develop so many areas of the brain, and
mm,
creativity in general is. I mean, if you think of nowadays, you think of AI. How did AI happen? Because somebody had the idea, and any idea means that there's creativity going on. So if you don't if you don't nurture that creativity, it's not that more ideas will just pop out magically from somewhere. It's because you're nurturing it. The more you nurture it, the more ideas come to you, and the more you take action on your ideas, the more you will grow. So that's the basis actually for more or less both of my businesses, the art part and the coaching side. I don't know if you have any questions about what I just said.
Well, it's definitely interesting how you're able to marry those two together because as you were speaking, I was thinking about my teen years, and I had the inner critic, but I also had, I would call it a cultural block, I would say, coming from a place where your parents are basically in the status of God. You just were trained to do what they said because mom or dad said it.
Hmm.
And obviously, you see what that looks like as an adult. You're just going around asking permission from everyone you think is superior to you. And I've spent a lot of time working on removing those conditions, and which is something that's kept me back. But thank God I was able to catch it through different trainings and resources. The sad part, when I think about what you're saying, is removing the opportunity for them to be creative. Because for me, being creative is an outlet. And I was sharing with a friend the other day that I regret buying so many toys for my kids because it's in the moments when I'm repurposing what I call trash, right? I mean, just something like an egg tray and the noise it makes. They're so like fascinated by being creative. And I also observed that it's helped in challenging times when I had some behavior issues. And one thing I learned as well with some training I did, um, just to help my kids, I actually became a teacher.
Uh-huh.
I don't tell many people that, but I said I'm a very involved parent, probably more
Yeah.
involved than I should be, but felt like I needed to be on the other side of what's going on in the educational system. I don't want to just hear it from a friend or assume, right? Because
Yeah.
assuming things is the biggest, I think it's the biggest killer. So I said I'll get involved and really embrace this moment in my life to be a parent, especially after being told all these years that I wasn't going to be able to have kids. And then I tell people I turned 40 and fertile. So it's moments like this when I realize, and hearing from folks like you, that if there is a way for me to, I guess, not lose myself in becoming a parent late in life,
Hmm.
but also help my kids to learn that I'm mom. I'm not your friend,
Hmm.
right? And I think it's a fine line with all of the impressions they have right now. There's the internet. I mean, so many things that we didn't have exposure to. I mean, and
Yeah.
this the research is coming out that it's doing a lot of good, but it's also causing a lot of confusions, and it causes even more problems when the brain is not developed well and they get
Hmm.
exposed to so much and they have to process. I mean, when I listen to some of the kids speak, and when I say kids, I'm referring to uh, toddlers,
Yes.
the things they're speaking about, I'm like, okay. I mean, they have like life problems. I got like real life issues. Some of them, like, what? How did you know about this? But because of our culture now, they're exposed to so much, and I think that extra challenge is creating a lot of job opportunities for you, folks like yourself.
Well, yeah, yes, yes, and there is that part as parents we have to realize that that is the new reality. There is no point fighting against it because one thing is that the more you fight against things and the more you resist them, the more they're going to show up. So there is this point that reverse psychology actually is true. When if you have I don't know, I don't remember if you have a boy or a girl, but if they get older and you tell them, I don't want you to go on a date, that's the cue for them. I need to go on a date. So you have to be careful with with why you want that really. So it's more about looking at yourself as a parent, like what is it about that you find so dangerous? Because the more you immerse yourself in it and understand it, then you're going to be able to help. But if you're just judging it from the outside as that it's wrong, it shouldn't happen, you won't be able to help. You'll be just in the point of, well, I know if this is happening, I'm not going to let her know. So you're going to be at the point where they're going to hide things from you on purpose because they know that you don't approve of them. But if you tell them, I know this happens, and you know, I understand that it might be something that calls your attention. Just I would like to know if it does call your attention. Not saying it's good or bad. Not saying I think it's good. I'm not saying I think it's bad. It's just it's something that's going on. Or ask them, is there any friend of yours that is going through this or trying this? And in this case, I'm talking specifically. There's a big issue with drugs nowadays
Mm,
amongst teenagers and preteens.
mm,
Big issue with both illegal drugs and prescription medicine,
mm,
and it's an issue that it's very difficult to realize when your child is getting there. And in my view, the best way to know it is if you're in constant conversation with them. Because by conversation, I don't mean you telling them what to do and they're doing it. I mean you asking them questions and having conversations about topics that aren't related to school or to behavior, but conversations. I always have like to have conversations about birds, about asking them, what do you think what do you think the eagle sees from up there, or what do you think this bird? How do you think he finds his mate, or he builds his nest? Just to see how the brain is working, and just taking the brain a little bit outside of where it's used to being, so that it relaxes. If it's a subject that they know you don't know much about, they don't know much about either, but they can make up and go into a conversation about that, you find a lot about find out a lot about your children in those types of conversations, about what they think is logical, how they think the world works, and that those are ways to get into conversations with them that will actually bring you closer, as strange as it seems. talking about
mm.
talking about birds or flowers, or anything in nature that is not us.
It's almost like you may need some prescription drugs to try to keep your composure after you hear whatever how the conversation goes. Like, oh, I did not want to know that.
Well, no, it just not judging. The main thing is not to judge, not to judge. I mean, nobody's perfect. As much as we try, perfection doesn't exist, and it exists because we are all perfect in our own way, in our own imperfect way. What doesn't exist is the individual idea of perfection that we each have. Yeah. And which is what causes a lot of stress actually in the world, is that
Mm,
when you're not meeting your own idea of perfection, and it causes stress for adults, it causes stress for young people as well. They get an idea very early on of what it means to be the perfect child,
mm,
and they want that, whether they act the opposite way, because sometimes they give up, but whether they act the opposite way, they want that. Everybody wants to be loved by their parents.
mm-hmm,
And so if you feel at some point, if you don't feel loved by them, you will either try harder, or you will rebel and say, this is just too difficult, I'll go and find it elsewhere. And that's also, I I want I would like to see less of families breaking up and if you look back at it and ask the questions, the reasons they break up is like little issues that when you say, is it really worth not speaking to your child anymore, or not being in their life because this happened?
mm-hmm,
Like, what is something that you really wouldn't be okay with when it's somebody that came from you, that you created? Yeah. They came from you, but they're not you. So
mm-hmm,
whatever your children do, it's what they are doing. It's not what you are doing.
mm-hmm.
So it's that separation from creator to creation.
So where do you draw the line? Or for folks listening, when would you say it's time to maybe reach out for support and go
Well,
there?
yeah, what I think in general is, if you see that your child is becoming more quiet or retracted, So they're speaking less to you, or they're starting to act out, to lash out, whatever reason it may be. It's always good to speak to someone, to have them speak to someone. Have them, if they refuse to speak to someone, then you speak to someone, so you can be the channel to get that through to them. Sometimes it has to do with the relationship. It always has to do with some relationship, whether the way they're viewing themselves, or the way they're viewing their school or their parents. It always has to do with a relationship. Now, which relationship?
Mm.
It's hard to tell, and sometimes it's a mix of many relationships, but it all starts from us, because we are the ones that create our perception from the world. They are the ones that create their perception of the world, and everything they see is through their own filter. So if those filters are more towards the positive, they'll see positive. If those filters are very negative, they'll only see negative.
So,
That's
from an entrepreneurial perspective,
yes,
what advice do you have for moms that you've learned from being an entrepreneur and
yes.
doing the work that you do?
So, well, my main advice, I can tell you, that is something that that I have, that I realized when I started promoting my coaching. I realized that my main advice is to not to be scared to sell. Because I noticed with my art as well, I was like, I'm doing these beautiful things, and I love how they look. But then I was like, okay, but how much do I charge for them? That was a big issue for me with my art. How much do I charge for it? Do I charge because of the materials I consumed, and how much I had to pay for the materials? But I wasn't including like myself. I wasn't including my work. Like even if I put an hourly wage to my work, imagine minimum wage, I wasn't including that. It was just like, okay, the materials and a little bit more. And then when I got into the coaching part, and I said, okay, how much am I going to charge an hour? Then I started thinking, yeah, well, I need to take into consideration, that it's not only, and yes, I'm there for an hour, but it's also the fact that what I have had to study, if I need to pay back whatever it is that I studied. So if I add all that plus the hour plus the attention, because it's not any hour, it's an hour where I'm paying specific attention to the person or to the group of people, and that requires a certain amount of mental energy. So it's that part of not being afraid to charge. And it's actually, there's something I heard the other day, that actually selling is a service. When you sell
Mhm.
things, you're being of service to people, because then they know that they are able to hire you. If you don't sell anything, if you don't say, okay, I'll charge you this much, then they don't really value you, and they won't think of you as an option.
Mm.
So it's the self value, I guess, is the I explained it in a very long way, but it's a self value.
Well, that's what Mompreneur Source is all about. We're not just building businesses, we're building legacies. And this is a place for the new moms who are thinking, should I go back to work, or should I be at home with my baby and do work on that idea? Right now, we live in a great time where you can bring your ideas to life, and we have lots of tools and resources. But in our community, we're your biggest cheerleaders, but we are implementers, right?
Hmm.
And entrepreneurship is just another an opportunity to have that, I wouldn't say work life balance, because I feel like being a mom, there's never balance.
Hmm.
Because you just it's so unpredictable, and I don't know if that's just the season or phase you go through. But hearing from my seasoned moms with older kids, they're like, Glow, it's just a different, the older they get, it's just a bigger problem you have to solve. So I don't know, I'm probably going to hang that work life balance hat somewhere else. However, I've observed being in the moment and embracing community. We have some really good perspectives from dads that are partnered with us. And
Yes.
I just like to end this with what type of legacy you like to leave, because every mom I interact with, I know that they do hard work. The ones that I encountered
Mhm.
that is attracted to our community, they're not just trying to stay within the realms of friends and family. So, what type of legacy would you like to leave?
So, for me, this is a thing because I'm not I'm not really a native English speaker, so I might not understand the word legacy completely. So if you could explain to me what that means, it would be good.
Well, one of my mentors said to me, I can see the forest in the seed,
Hmm.
right? So every seed that's planted, when you nurture it, what happens? It grows and it produces fruit. And before you know it, that seed just blooms. And I like to think of legacies that when you're long gone, what did you leave behind? What will still
Okay.
exist because of you? And I appreciate you sharing that, because we're so multicultural now. Like, I'm from the Bahamas, and I am
Uh-huh.
at first, when I started doing these interviews, my English, I still use a lot of slang, and people say, "Oh, I don't hear it." Well, I can hear it, and I also feel when I'm trying to say the word what I think is better.
Yeah.
But thanks for sharing. And that's basically what I mean. What do you want to leave behind that's still going to go on when you're long gone?
So what I would like to leave behind is a space where people, parents, have learned to listen,
Mm,
and parents are listening both to their kids and to their partners and to themselves. And I mean listening without judgment. That's what I mean. Just honest listening without saying that's good or bad. Just listen. That's the main thing I would like to leave behind.
Now, can you say it in your native language, just in case someone that speaks your language is listening?
Sure. Entonces, lo que me gustaría dejar atrás cuando el día que yo ya no esté, me gustaría dejar un espacio en el que la gente se escuche sin juicio, que escuchen realmente lo que está ahí, lo que se están diciendo a sí mismos, a sus hijos, a sus parejas, que escuchen sin pensar qué es bueno, qué es malo, sin juzgar, simplemente escuchar. El escuchar tiene un valor increíble.
Hmm, thank you. Now, last, how do folks get in touch with you, and where are you located?
Okay, so physically I'm located in Weston, Florida, but I see most of the people I interact with them online. And my website is Daniela D, Daniela with one L, D/coach.com. And that's my website. And at the bottom of the website, you have some my contact information. You also have some a little bit of information of programs I have for young people and for parents.
Okay, you want to say it in your language as well?
Sí, si se quieren poner en contacto conmigo, mi página web es www.danielad.coach.com, coach es COACH por si acaso, .com. Y en la parte inferior de la página está una planilla de contacto, pero también está información sobre programas que tengo para jóvenes y programas que tengo para padres. Gracias.
Oh, gracias. Thank you so much for being with us, and we hope to see you around here in the Mompreneur Source community. We are virtual and local to Broward County, Florida. So until next time, Daniela, thank you so much.
Thank you.